Okay, so I will be presenting on skills development, the ACT, and basically the process. Skills development is one of our service offerings, and yeah, so the presentation is as follows. What is skills development? So the purpose of the ACT aims to develop the skills of the South African workforce and to improve the quality of life of workers and the prospects of work. So basically the Skills Development Act, like the other acts, the basic conditions, employment equity and so forth, were put in place to readdress previous disadvantages. And one of the lacks that we had was developed employees in the workforce. Basically, this act was put together to facilitate development and training within the workforce. Okay. Another purpose of the act is to improve productivity in the workplace and competitiveness of employers and to promote self-employment. So as we continue with the presentation, you will see that skills development promotes initiatives that equip a person even beyond the workplace. So the training or the programs that are promoted by the Skills Development Act are programs such as Learnerships, Internships, bursary skills programs that will afford you certification, and experience, so that even if you leave the specific employer, then you are able to continue with that employable skill elsewhere. The purpose of the Act is also to increase the level of investment in education and training in the labor market and to improve the return on that investment. The Act also aims to ensure the quality of education and training in the workplace. Okay, so with the Skills Development Act is the Skills Development Levies Act. Okay, so basically what the Skills Development Levies Act in summary does, it governs the levies that will enable skills development in the workplace. So basically, if we say that we want to train and upskill people as a nation, then there needs to be funding or levies that will be able to fund and cater for that training and development. And basically what the levy says is if a company's payroll exceeds 500,000, they are required to pay a skills development levy. Okay, so where will you see what the skills development levy of a company is? On your EMP 201 SARS document, which reflects your UIF, your pay as you earn, and it also reflects your SDL, which is your skills development levy. So if your payroll exceeds 500,000, then you need to pay 1% of your payroll to SARS towards skills development. Okay, so basically, if for example your levies are 2,000 rand a month to 2,000 rand a month, you pay that over to SARS, and then SARS will then split it accordingly. And as mentioned here, there are 2 grants in which you can claim the funding. The first grant is your mandatory grant, which is 20%, and your discretionary grant, which is 49%. So in essence, a company that pays skills development levy over to SARS can claim back a total of 69.5 of those levies back. So if you pay, like I said, 2,000 rand over to SARS, you can claim about 1,500 and odd rand. So you can claim all of that back and use that towards your training. Yes, it's really interesting because many companies do not know that if they want to develop, train, and upskill their staff, there is funding there for them to do so. So they don't necessarily have to use their own funding or money from their budget to train staff, but they can make use of that grant to be able to facilitate that training. So if you have a look at the discretionary grant, it says 80% of the total discretionary grant must be allocated towards pivotal training. Okay, so pivotal training speaks to your internships, your bursaries, your learnerships, your skills programs and credit bearing short courses. So basically those skills that I said, once you have them, you can apply them even outside the workplace. So what they're trying to do is to promote employable skills, to equip not to equip you not just for the work that you are doing, but the work that you will do should you move on to a different segment in your life. So basically, that's what the skills development levy governs. It governs the fact that if you are above the threshold, then you pay your levies, and if you pay your levies, then you are able to claim back your levies. Now, how do you claim back your levies is the question. How you claim back your levies is you need to be compliant with submitting your reports, SETA training reports to the SETA annually. Okay, so what is a SETA? SETA is a sectoral education and training authority that has been put to govern the process of the disbursement of funding, and also to promote the quality of training. As we move on with our presentation, you will see what the role of the SETA is. Okay, there are about 21 SETAs currently, one covering each sector. So there's a SETA for finance, the finance sector, there's a SETA for the banking sector, there's a SETA for manufacturing and engineering, there's a SETA for mining. So each and every company falls into a category, and there is a SETA that governs the funding for that specific category. Okay, just to paint a picture of how your levies are split. So if you pay that 2,000 Rand levy, it is split into mandatory grant, discretionary grant, SETA admin, and another portion goes towards the National Skills Fund. So if you pay that 2,000 Rand, half of it for 9.5%, prior to 2014, companies used to receive 49.5% of their grants back and 20% towards discretionary. And then the 10.5% would go towards the SETA admin and 20% towards the National Skills Fund. But after 2013-14, obviously after they had reviewed the impact that training has in the workplace, and having looked at the goal that basically the National Skills has, I guess it made more sense to allocate more funding to discretionary grants, which then will promote training of more quality and longevity. So your mandatory grant you can use towards your in-house training, product knowledge training, but then your discretionary grant, like I mentioned, you can allocate to skills that are more in depth and can actually lead to certification or qualifications. So the mandatory grant is now 20%, discretionary grant for 9.5. 10% of that levy goes towards SETA admin. So the SETA obviously needs funding to run, and 10.5 goes towards that, and then 20% goes towards the National Skills Fund. So the National Skills Fund or institutions such as your NSFAS, where you find students applying for bursaries and then they are funded by NSFAS. This is the pocket in which their funding comes from. So each and every company contributes towards that National Skills Fund. Okay. One of the questions that we get asked a lot is what happens to the funding that companies do not claim? What happens is it all goes into the National Skills Fund pot. So then that's why you find that we are able to, or the National Skills Fund is able to fund more and more learners on an annual basis, because such funds go towards that. Or also if companies do claim but don't use the total allocation that was given to them, the remaining money goes towards the National Skills Fund. So skills development is then therefore continued from that scale. Okay, there we find the SETAs. What is the role of the SETA? As I mentioned, the SETA stands for Sectoral Education and Training Authority. The role of the SETA is to develop a sector skills plan within the framework of the National Skills Development Strategy. And they implement the sector skills plan by establishing learning programs, approving workplace skills plans and annual training reports. When I mentioned earlier that you can claim those funding by submitting your reports to the SETA, these are the reports I'm referring to. Your workplace skills plan basically is what your company aims to, how your company, what your company aims to train on. So what you're planning basically for the coming year. And then your ATR, which is your annual training report, is what training you've done. So you report to the SETA on what training you've completed and also what training you intend on completing in the coming year. Okay. Their role is also to approve the pivotal training report, to allocate the grant, and to monitor education and skills development provision in the various sectors. Okay, their role is also to promote learnerships and other learning programs by identifying workplaces for practical work experience, to support the development of learning material, to improve facilitation of learning, and assist in the conclusion of agreements for learning programs to the extent that it is required. Okay, and the last point is register agreements for learning programs to the extent that it is required. So their role is then to basically govern that whole learning process. So from claiming your grants, submitting your report to claim your grants, but once you've claimed your grants, now you need to register those learners with the national body, so that once they're done and they're certified, then their qualifications are recognized. So their role rather is to facilitate that process. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, we've got 21 different SETAs. Okay, so this is a list showing the various SETAs and the sectors that companies fall within. So there's the FACET, which is the finance sector, bank SETA, which is banking institutions fall under that. CHETA, which is the chemical industry SETA. FPNM is textile SETA. SETA is construction. ETDP is the education training and training SETA. There's the energy SETA, ESETA. There's the food and beverage SETA. There's the forestry SETA. There's the health and welfare SETA. So all your clinics, hospital, for health and welfare. There's the MICT SETA, which is your media, information, communications, and technology. All those companies fall under that SETA. All your insurance companies will fall under NSETA. All your local government institutions will fall under LG SETA. There's NQA SETA for mining. There's MER SETA for manufacturing and engineering. There's SAS SETA for safety and security. Agri SETA for your agricultural companies. There's services SETA, there's CAT SETA for all your cultural, tourism, and hospitality institutions. There's TITA SETA, which caters for transport and logistics, and there's your wholesale and retail SETA. Okay, so those are the different SETA. So when you think of a company and what they do, each company, when registered at SARS, is allocated to a SETA. And then they would submit their reports to that specific SETA. They would claim their grants from that specific SETA, and will also train their learners through that specific SETA. Okay, and then to make the process possible, you need a skills development facilitator, which is where we come in, which is what we do for companies. We become the middleman between the SETA and the company, because clearly the company does not know of this function, of this process, and we are experts. Therefore, we would then be allocated to our clients, and then we will be able to assist them to be able to get the reimbursements back for the sake of training, developing, and upskilling. Okay. So our function is to assist the employer to develop a WSP, which, as mentioned earlier, is a workplace skills plan. So we help companies to say, okay, now that you're in a position where you can access that funding from SARS, what do you plan on doing with that funding? Okay, so then we help them to develop a WSP. Now that includes forming a training committee where training will be discussed and needs will be identified. It includes so much. The report is not just something that we or put together, but it's a whole process that goes into forming the workplace skills plan, which, by the way, is submitted annually by the 30th of April. Okay, so our function is also to submit the workplace skills plan and pivotal training report to the SETA. To advise on the implementation of the WSP. So we don't only submit the reports for them, but we advise them in terms of implementation after their reports have been submitted and approved. We assist the employer to complete the ATR and the PTR. So we able to help them to track what training they've done so far. Because that is also a requirement for submission. We advise the employer on the quality assurance requirements. So there are certain documents, supporting documents and compliance documents that need to be in order for your report to be approved in order for you to access that funding. So we advise the employer on those. We act as a contact person between the employer and the SETA because we are experts, therefore, in that field. We serve as a resource regarding all aspects of skills development. So we are able to also help them to source training providers that are accredited and will be able to fulfill the entire task. And we communicate SETA initiatives, grants, and benefits to the company. Okay, so the submission timelines, the various SETA have various reporting dates. Okay, so for Facet Bank SETA, Food Bev, and CAP SETA, as well as Nurse SETA, you report on anything that happened between January and December. For the remaining SETAs, you report on anything that happened between April and March. Though every report must be in by April. So, for example, if you're submitting in April 2020, okay, when submitting for Facet Bank SETA, Food Bev, CAP SETA, and Nurse SETA, you would submit on everything that happened from January 2019 to December 2019. But you would submit that info in April. Now, for the remaining SETAs, if you're submitting in April 2020, you would submit everything that happened from the 1st of April 2019 to the 31st of March 2020. Then you can submit that report by April 2020. Okay. The SETA requirements, so when I refer to quality assurance of documents, they are supporting documents that are required with your report for your submission to be successful. So we've broken them down per SETA what is required. So a letter of appointment, basically telling the SETA that you have appointed our company as your skills development facilitator. That letter needs to be signed on a company letterhead so the SETA can register the company, the client, on our dashboard, because we are the ones that have a dashboard and access to the SETA. So when we submit that letter, the SETA registered that company under our dashboard. Okay, so that we can work on the report, you need to submit a certified bank letter or a cancelled check. You need to submit a training intervention sheet and meeting minutes. So if your company has more than 50 staff members, then you need to have a training committee in place. So if you have a training committee in place, meetings need to be held and meeting minutes recorded and submitted as proof of those. For a different SETA, like Nurse SETA, you need separate documents, company registration documents submitted. You need motivation of deviation. If you deviated from training that you said you would do, you need to motivate it. Services SETA will require an addendum C, which is a summary of training and expenditure. Yes, so these are various documents that are required on an annual basis. But something like a bank letter you submit annually because they need to verify that they're paying the grant into the right account so that you would supply to the SETA on an annual basis. Okay, and this obviously is each SETA broken down what is required of them to have a successful submission. Okay, and just the summary, the skills development submission process. You would request the letter of appointment, the banking details, the separate documents, the invoice, training invoices, attendance registers. Then your next step is you would request a contact and training information spreadsheet from the client, okay, where you would populate what training was done, what the stock looks like at that point. Then you would process and upload the information onto Maximizer, which is our internal CRM system. After uploading information onto Maximizer, you would pull from the STFS reporting spreadsheet a pivot table that will help you to upload that information onto the SETA. This is something that was developed internally to ensure that the process is easier and is more accurate. Then you would upload and capture the information onto the SETA on their online systems. Each SETA has their own online system, so you would capture the relevant client information on the relevant SETA dashboard. You would pull the submission report and send it to the client for sign-off. You would ensure next that all the documents required are uploaded, and you will submit by the 30th of April. Once you've submitted, you save the final report onto ShareDocs, which is our internal shared drive, and you update the control sheet and the files accordingly. So in summary, that is the skills development process. We then advise companies and promote this learning culture and promote the spirit of the Act to train and develop and upskill employees within the company. This is not only for the individuals themselves, but to also improve productivity and morale within the company. Now, the beauty about skills development is it's not only limited to your employees, but as an employer that can support and a skill, you're able to also recruit students from colleges or people that have just graduated and give them work experience at your workplace. That also counts towards your skills development. And the beauty about skills development is it's incorporated into your other acts. So you report on skills development even when you submit your employability. Your skills development plays a huge part in terms of your BBBE scorecard. So there is a great benefit in skills development, and a lot of companies are sitting not knowing that they can follow through this process and are able to benefit so much in that they save in terms of budget, because one of the reasons why companies do not train their staff is because training is expensive and it's coming from their pocket, and there's sometimes no return on that investment. But when you advise a client that they are able to make use of the skills development levy that they pay anyway to SARS on a monthly basis, they're able to claim that back through the skills development process, which we will assist them with. Then they are able to promote the learning culture going forward. And the beauty about it is it's a national goal to equip and upskill people in the workplace and people outside of the workplace, preparing them for the work environment. So yes, in summary, that is the skills development process. That's what the Skills Development Act aims to fulfill, and our role as the SDF is to ensure that companies successfully complete this. Thank you very much.